Gentlemen, this is actually a joint meeting, it's a continuation meeting of the Village Board and the Community Development Authority. And so we're both going to gavel in, but we'll start with the CDA. Vice Chair Jerry Franke.
Thanks. I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Development Authority to order. Sam, you want to take a roll call of the members present?
Franke,
Here.
McReynolds, Thorson, Davies, Clausen,
Here.
DeGroot,
He's here.
and Richardson is excused.
We have a quorum.
So for the Village of Mount Pleasant, we'd like to open this meeting as well, and we'll start with a roll call.
Doxey.
Here.
Washburn.
Here.
Bhatia.
Here.
Anastasio.
Here.
Hewitt.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
DeGroot.
He's here. So today's meeting is, there's a number of things that we're going to discuss and bring to vote that we intoned on back Monday. There's a discussion regarding implementation agreement, and that's colloquially known as the Foxconn release. There will be a discussion regarding the purchase and sale agreement in TID 5 for Microsoft Corporation. And then we'll be discussing the development agreement that goes along with that. So that's, and there'll be a little bit of CDA, and there'll be a little bit of board. But just at the outset of all this, I just wanted to remark that, once again, I am thrilled and honored that the Microsoft Corporation is dedicated to making a significant investment in Mount Pleasant and intends to make our village the home to its newest data center campus. The commitment by them is the pinnacle of almost a year's worth of work by village staff, partners, and consultants. It's always been our vision for TID 5 to be a technology hub in the Midwest, and we are absolutely thrilled to have Microsoft as one of our newest corporate residents. I am confident that our great village is sure to see continued growth. Once again, I want to recognize the people that have worked diligently to make this incredible opportunity arrive at our village. Our partners at Milwaukee 7 and RC EDC and our own Claude Loyce, thank you for all of your hard work. And to Microsoft, welcome to Mount Pleasant. So let's, you've heard my comments, so let's move on to everybody's favorite, public comment. Can we hear from Senator Van Wangard?
Well, good evening, everybody. Our village board, good evening. I thought it was important that I talk a little bit about how we got to where we're at. I want to thank this board for its forward-looking vision, but I also want to thank the previous boards, the previous county boards. Full disclosure, I did serve on the county board from 2002 through 2011. And at that time, the corridor out here was one of our prime focuses to get it ready for development, to draw those businesses here that would attract other good businesses. So we didn't get 13,000 jobs from Foxconn, but we did get the infrastructure in place to have those 13,000 jobs come here. And now, as a result, Foxconn has employed over 1,000 people now. They're starting to collect some of those tax credits, but they also have put buildings in place, so there's millions of square feet of manufacturing space that's already under roof. And now we're talking about Microsoft coming. $50 million purchase, but $1 billion investment in our development here in Little Mount Pleasant. I thought it was a super big deal when Gummy Bears decided they were going to have their international place here outside on the other side of the I. Now we have this happening across both the Kenosha line and the Racine County line, where we have two government bodies that are working together to improve the ability for people to have good paying jobs and opportunity. This has been going on for a couple decades. We do also enjoy, I think at the legislature where I serve as a senator for the 21st district, which serves both Racine and Kenosha counties, we have a working organization of members from both sides of the aisle who work together on areas of mutual concern to make southeastern Wisconsin, I guess, a tip of the spear so we can get things accomplished, things that are going to be better for the people who live in our community. It is never easy when you have to take land that has been in people's families for in some cases, tens and tens and tens of years. And it's a difficult decision, but it's one you made, and now we're moving forward. We are creating that environment for other businesses to come here. I know of a company that's a German company that just located its national headquarters here in Caledonia, Probst. And they do stuff for laying bricks and stuff like that. They're one of two companies in the world. And they chose this area, and they did that for a reason, because our boards work together. Caledonia works with Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant works with Kenosha. So I just want to say thank you and keep up the good work, and I look forward to working with you at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Weingarten. Can we hear from Andrea Bukacek?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Andrea Bukacek. I'm the CEO and owner of Bukacek Construction. Bukacek Construction is a commercial general contractor and construction manager based in Racine County. We're also a certified woman-owned business with the state of Wisconsin, and we're celebrating our 60th anniversary in Racine County. So I'm here to support the Microsoft development. I think this is an amazing thing for our community and for the tradespeople here. As a self-performed general contractor, we rely heavily on the tradespeople, the skilled labor in this area, and it's in my experience that when you have a development of this magnitude, of this size and scale, it's going to attract that labor force that will help us for years to come. So I'd also like to see the construction of the facilities move forward utilizing local companies, specifically to Racine County. I think that's a really key component to the success of this project. You know, often with major developments, they can go to national or out of market or even out of state companies or contractors. So I'd really like to see a component of that as part of this opportunity. Thank you.
How about Kevin Rano?
Hello, Kevin Rano, 5621 First Street, which is Highway KR, just a little less than 1 mile from the Microsoft site. As many of the neighbors, we'd like to learn more of this. I have a few questions and concerns and hope that perhaps you will consider them. We're curious to know of the 300 plus acres, how many will actually be developed and approximately how many square feet under roof? Will the Root Pike Wind nonprofit still have input in how the Lamprecht Creek is managed through that site? Will some of the existing trees be preserved, or better yet, because cooling is so important to a data center, will more trees be planted? Will efforts be made to reduce noise and light pollution that leaves the site? Will a higher aesthetic standard be applied to avoid the overhead wires and wood poles that are still present at the Foxconn site? Have potential wind turbines and solar panels been discussed already, and if so, what was your reply? Will utility water be used for the cooling, or will groundwater be used? When up and running, how many actual Microsoft employees will be on site versus contracted operators? What route will new fiber optic lines follow? And will eminent domain be used to provide a path? What construction labor protections will be in place. I see that within the last month, 47 carpenters were fired at a new Microsoft data center in Virginia over wage disputes. When they talked about organizing, they're all let go. And then again, in conclusion, thank you. And I hope that as concerns are brought up by me or other of our neighbors, that we move forward with our eyes and ears wide open. Thank you.
Those are excellent questions, Kevin. I would suggest that you get in touch with Claude Loyce, project manager, and pardon me? He can answer all those. Alfonso Gardner.
Is anybody from Microsoft here? No. Nobody from Microsoft here today? All right, well, I'm not gonna read what I was gonna read about them. But first of all, I wanna thank you guys for.
Name and address.
Name is Alfonso Gardner, address 1941 Broham Lane. Since Microsoft is not here, I'm not gonna say anything about that. But what I'm gonna say is this: I'm glad that they come in here, okay? But the issue I have, same thing I have with Foxconn, is the black community. Foxconn had never met with the black community yet. Is Microsoft gonna meet with the black community? I'm a taxpayer, and I wanna meet with them to share some of my concerns about the contracting and about the work. Microsoft has a good diversity and inclusion policy. That's why I wanted to talk to them about that. You can have stuff down on paper, but do you practice what you preach? And I want them to practice what they got in here about economic and inclusion and all that. I wish they were here. I want you to give them my name and phone number. I'd like to talk to them. It's very important that everybody in this county be included. It's time out for only whites making the money. It's time out for that. Everybody need to be included, because we all are taxpayers. No one is better than no one. So I want to see us being involved, the black community. I definitely want to see that. And like I said, I want to meet with Microsoft. Don't be afraid to have them meet with me. You know I am. I'm a straight shooter. I'm going to ask them some questions. And I want them to answer the questions. This is too important for them not to meet with everybody. Everybody counts, people. Everybody in this world counts. But when you leave people out, people get upset. I don't want to get upset. I'm trying to be a peacemaker. You know, so I want to meet with them. So give them my information. All y'all have it. You know me. Give it to them. Let them talk to me. And I got some stuff for them to make this work for everybody. Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughts. How about Steve Wickland?
Hi, good evening. My name is Steve Wickland. I live at 270 Mill Avenue, Union Grove, Wisconsin. I am the village president of Union Grove. I am also the chairperson of the Racine Intergovernmental Cooperation Council. I cannot tell you how excited the whole region is right now. All of Racine County should be super pumped up about this project. I want to thank the Mount Pleasant Board for your leadership and your role in getting this done. I know it's a hard thing. You take a lot of hits. But at the end of the day, I think history will judge you on what happens here today. And on behalf of the Village of Union Grove and the Racine Intergovernmental Cooperation Council, well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we hear from Dan Paulson?
I'm Dan Paulson, former resident of Mount Pleasant, now a resident of Oak Creek. I'm here on behalf of a loved one to speak who lives in Mount Pleasant. I would like to first apologize to the trustees and to the people that were here on Thursday for a bad word I used. I hope you accept my apology, and I will watch my language. I have been a lifelong resident of Racine. I believe that in watching Mount Pleasant, lived in Mount Pleasant for 5 years, in watching the evolution of this Board of Trustees under the direction of a phenomenal administrator, you are looking at a group of individuals who have dropped party lines and function as a nonpartisan group. They're not Democrats, they're not Republicans, they're not independents. They are individuals that function together as a whole, nonpartisan, and they are in changing the composition of this board. You will start from ground zero. I have 45 seconds. I want to read you something quickly. There's a contemporary philosopher, Noam Chomsky, very left, okay, but has a good statement. A human being creates through thoughts, words, and deeds. But sometimes words fail us. And we need to understand this because we need to understand the limitations of language. The point I'm making with this comment is from the opposition, the language has been disgusting, vile, and untrue. Language cannot express the thoughts, ideas, and deeds that each one of these individuals are committed to and want to better this community.
Thank you.
45 seconds.
Can we hear, thank you. Can we hear from Ernie Rossi?
Ernie Rossi, 3332 North Elmwood Drive. You're supposed to save the best for last, so I apologize. That's not happening here. I spoke on Monday to President DeGroot and the trustees as an owner of a business in Mount Pleasant. And tonight I'm wearing a different hat. I'm speaking as the president of Elmwood Park. And I want to start by saying congratulations on Microsoft. That's absolutely amazing. The citizens of not only Mount Pleasant, but Racine County as a whole and surrounding areas will benefit for years from this. Leadership that not only understands the importance of attracting large industrial players, but actually achieving that goal is something rare. Many leaders, candidates will make these promises, they're easy to make, but most don't even achieve a fraction of what you've accomplished here in just 4 years. So, thank you, and I look forward to the progress you will continue to make.
Thank you. So we'll give Ray Leffler the last word.
Hi, Ray Leffler, 111 Lamplighter Lane. I'm a Racine resident, born at St. Mary's Hospital and lived here my whole life and never left. It is absolutely amazing that Foxconn started this project, and they deserve a lot of credit for what they did. They paid their bills, they did what they needed to do, and from that point, we're now moving forward with Microsoft, which, as a little boy, I am a Microsoft stockholder, under full disclosure, but as a little boy, I would have never dreamed this. I look at when we had the intergovernmental agreement in the early 2000s, where we just tried to get sewer and water out to the eye, the battles we had to try to get that sewer and water out to the eye. Without that sewer and water, you'd have nothing. To create TID4, to have a company come in, guarantee the increment, and go through this process. Granted, they didn't do everything they said they were going to do. They're still working at it. They're evolving. Businesses change. We change all the time. We bob, we weave. The interest rates change. Employers change. It is an unbelievable thing that we have got to this point. They've signed off on that agreement, knowing that maybe I didn't do everything I want to do, but I want to stay in this community. I want to be an active member, and we're still going to grow our business. So to bring Microsoft here and others that are going to follow, and there will be a lot of others. One of the best things that happened yesterday to me, and this really made it personal, we had one of our team members in the office came over, and they said, Microsoft, they're really coming? And I said, yep, that's what's going to happen. They said, well, I have 2 sons living in West Virginia who moved there specifically because they're techies. Young people, they leave this area more than they stay. So they left that area, and he said, you know what? I talked to them on the phone, and they said, maybe I'm thinking of moving back to Wisconsin. And he said to me, holy cow, I may be able to see my kids and my grandkids over time. To think that they were going to move back from Wisconsin, they said they'd never come. So if it wasn't for the board, working with all the groups, everything you've done collaboratively with a lot of stakeholders, and it's a lot of work. And being in politics, I commend every one of you. It is not easy. Being on a board, serving on committees, the diverse thoughts of everyone, listening to everybody, and coming up what's best for the community. And Microsoft is best for this community. Thank you.
Ray, I echo your thoughts. Let's bring some of our kids back home. So from here, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Markowitz.
Thank you. Just to remind people who are here, there is one item on the CDA agenda, and that is to consider and make a recommendation to the village board on the development agreement that's proposed. There are 3 matters on the village board agenda: consideration of the implementation agreement, consideration of the purchase and sale agreement, and consideration of the recommendation coming from the CDA. So when we finish the next part of the discussion, we'll turn to the CDA for them to take action on the matter that's on their agenda, and then we'll return to the village board for the village board to take action on their matters. I want to review briefly that we are talking tonight about 3 agreements. But I want to start off by telling you that this is not a maybe. All of these agreements, the implementation agreement, purchase and sale agreement, the development agreement, have all been signed, sealed, and delivered by Foxconn and Microsoft. all we need to do today, if everything is approved, is have our officers sign these documents, and we have this deal here in Mount Pleasant. The first of the agreements is the implementation agreement, which is the agreement with Foxconn. And I want to turn to my colleague and friend Debbie Tomczyk of the Reinhardt firm to explain briefly what is contained in that implementation agreement. Debbie?
Thank you, Alan. Thanks to the village board for having us here today. I'm representing Racine County. My name is Debbie Tomczyk with Reinhardt Burner, 1000 North Water Street, and I've had the privilege of working with Alan Markovitz and his team, everyone from the village, Claude, since 2017 when this interesting journey started. We are here about these particular 3 agreements, as Alan indicated, and you've got the map of what the area is we're talking about. Foxconn does have still a development agreement that encumbers the project and the project plan that they were ready to embark upon. That will not be changing. There is still a development agreement with Foxconn. They continue to perform all of their financial obligations. They also fronted all of the monies for the acquisition of the property that we're talking tonight that's shaded in yellow that would be occupied by Microsoft. So Foxconn fronted the funds. They also have acquisition rights over that property, and we need them to be a partner to release those rights. So that's what that implementation agreement is about. The methodology for Foxconn to release their rights to enable the Microsoft development to go forward. Foxconn does not receive any additional dollars, not another dollar from what they're entitled to under the development agreement. Foxconn's obligations are not changed in any way. Their increment and their makeup payments continue to be what backstops all of the debt for the wonderful infrastructure that attracted Microsoft to this site. But again, Foxconn did front the funds, the acquisition costs for this land. So when Microsoft pays its purchase price, Foxconn will be partially reimbursed for those acquisition funds that they fronted. In addition, Microsoft's increment, as all increment in TID 5, will continue to pay down the existing municipal debt that we have. We've had all of these agreements also approved by bond council, so that we're sure we're continuing to adhere to all of our bond covenants as well. But more increment means that we can pay down the debt more quickly, a good thing for all of us. That specifically because the Microsoft area that's shaded in yellow is about 12% of the area 1, 2, and 3 in TID 5. 12% of Microsoft's increment under this implementation agreement will actually be dedicated towards the 12% of the debt that's already on the books, paying that debt down again more quickly. And once that debt is paid down, 12% of the increment from Microsoft will also be made available to, if Foxconn has to make makeup payments, and we anticipate they will, the first one coming due in 2024, they'll get reimbursed those makeup payments more quickly. So again, nothing changes in the development agreement with Foxconn. Foxconn releases its acquisition rights so that we can have the land available for acquisition by Microsoft. And the only impact on Foxconn is they will get some of what they're entitled to a bit more quickly after our debt is paid. And this is another vehicle to make sure that our debt is paid more quickly. Happy to answer any questions after the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Debbie. The second agreement that we're talking about is, of course, the purchase and sale agreement. And I want to point out and remind everyone that all 3 of these agreements, the implementation agreement, the purchase agreement, and the development agreement, have been in general circulation for everyone's access since Monday. All the members of the CDA, or the members of the board, members of the public, members of the media have all had full access to this. A few questions have arisen, they've been answered, and we continue that process. So I'm not going to be taking your time away from a busy evening to go through these long, legally prepared documents which lawyers love and everybody else hates. So let me just talk about some of the highlights in the purchase and sale agreement first. As you can see from the map, The property covered by the agreement is the area that is colored with Microsoft colors, and it is generally bounded by KR, Braun Road, the railroad track, and 90th Street. 90th Street will be improved and widened, but the additional area needed for new roadway along 90th Street will all be coming from the west side of the street from the Microsoft parcel. That area is divided for development purposes into a south parcel and a north parcel, generally divided by the power easement that extends from the substation and continues east and runs through this property. The total acreage is about 314 acres. The purchase price that's being paid by Microsoft to buy this property is $50,085,000. The earnest money that will be deposited this week is $400,000. And we intend to get to this closing before the end of July of this year. And we are on Microsoft's schedule. Microsoft has said they are eager to begin moving dirt and starting construction of this project this year. And we are going to do everything we can to see if we can make that happen. On the development agreement, it's already been mentioned, but I think it deserves mention again. Microsoft is making a minimum commitment to spend $1 billion here to create this campus. That includes land, buildings, equipment, everything that goes with it. When I was a younger lawyer, I used to think $1 million was an unbelievable amount of money. It's still hard for me at my advanced age to get my head around $1 billion. But then I look at the federal reports that we get, and I realize that I have a long way to go yet to master what they have to deal with in Washington. What we start from here, folks, is what this area of land was worth when the TID was created back in 2017. The exact number is $3,537,000. The projected value for the TID will add increment of more than $700 million to that number. If the village is able to hold their mill rate as they did this last year at the lowest level in more than a decade, and project just that mill rate on into the future, that increment will generate over time more than $265 million in tax revenue. What will Microsoft be receiving from this? Those of you who are familiar with TIDs know that the most desirable process that a community can employ is the so-called PAYGO method. We have worked out a deal with Microsoft where they will get participation in the increment created by the buildings that they create. Microsoft has agreed that they will get no payment whatsoever from the land increment, which will happen by January 1 of 24 if the closing occurs as we project in 2023. They will not get any increment from the base value. And as long as we have a personal property tax in this state, which is an open question these days, they will not get any increment from the personal property revenue that the village may receive over time until perhaps the legislature says enough already with our personal property tax. And I know that's a subject that Senator Weingart is very interested in. What Microsoft will receive only after all of the debt payments have been met is 42% of the increment that comes from the buildings with a cap of $5 million per year. We are very proud of the work that's been done by our legal team and by the Microsoft legal team to arrive at these conclusions. It certainly has the recommendation to both the CDA and to the board of our financial consultant and of our legal team. And we have heard your support for it here tonight. So at this point, I would like to turn it over so that members of the CDA, members of the village board can ask any questions that they have, and then proceed with action by both the CDA and the village board. So, any questions down there, Jeff?
Do any members of the Community Development Authority have questions for the staff or the village board or the attorneys? Seeing none, do you want us to take action on the agreement, or?
Why don't we see if any of the village trustees have any questions, because that may illuminate on the issue that you have before you. Thank you.
Any thoughts or questions from the board at this time?
Mr. President, I'd be happy to make a comment. I have read and studied in the 3 days since we received all of these agreements. And I'm very impressed by the way very difficult agreements were put together so that as we read through them, all the exhibits were attached from the original 2017 agreement. They were very well written, they're very specific, and they're very protective of all the parties. In the event of good news or bad news, the village, which is who we care very much about, is greatly protected. Microsoft is greatly protected, and so is Foxconn. So I would just like to thank the legal team for putting these together thoughtfully. The questions that I had were very minor clarifications and were answered by staff earlier. And I appreciate being able to make the comment as we move forward to vote.
Anna Marie?
Similarly, as Nancy said, to review these 3 agreements over the past few days, there's a lot of volume here to go through. It was well written. Similarly, I had just a couple of minor questions that was answered. They were readable and very protective, and I am so glad to be here for this.
Go ahead, Ron.
So same here as someone with a background who has spent around 25 to 30 years working for a very large international corporation, and who has reviewed many of these large contracts, not in $1 billion range, but hundreds of $1 million range. Again, I read all 3 agreements, and I echo Trustee Washburn and Clausen comment that they're very well written legal document. It clarifies everything. Again, like everyone else, when you read them, so you have a couple of questions or clarification, and again, we talk to staff and to the staff, and right now our attorney Alan has very well explained to the public, and I also get a clarification about the payments to Foxconn and to Microsoft, especially after the debt is paid. So again, I don't have any question. I am very pleased with the agreements, and I think it's a great for the whole community, and I fully support that.
Yeah, what I'd like to add is it's been mentioned that this partnership with Microsoft has taken the course of a better part of a year. And it's really remarkable how well we were able to keep this quiet as all of the pieces of this were coming into place over a course of many, many months. Non-disclosure agreements are signed, and so frankly, we can't talk about this with the general public until we're able to make the announcement that we made Monday. And there are so many partners that are involved in this, not only what we're doing here at the local level, but as I mentioned earlier, M7, RCEDC, any number of state agencies, our legal team, county's legal team. There's just the Microsoft end of things, the Foxconn involvement in it. There's just so much going on that can't be talked about until we can talk about it. And I just find it remarkable that we were able to keep this quiet, because loose lips along any step of the way can sink ships, because as far as Microsoft is concerned, there are legal reasons, there's competitive reasons, and it's just very hard to keep things quiet. And so I just wanted to congratulate all of the players in this, because the team is deep and wide for all the work that they did.
Mr. President. Yeah, if you bear with me, I have a couple things. I read the documents and I was happy with them as well, but I have a couple other things that I want to say. We've got a lot of naysayers that like to point out that Foxconn did not hit their promised numbers for jobs. What has been conveniently forgotten is that, like all businesses, Foxconn has struggled with growth the last few years because of COVID and the mitigating factors and issues that were created by COVID. And now this economic development area was conceived and created in order to bring tech-focused industry to the region. I'm heartened to see Microsoft is building within this infrastructure that would not have been developed if it was not for Racine County, Mount Pleasant, and Foxconn's forward thinking. This partnership tells me now that we're finally moving forward. That's it. Thanks.
Mr. Frankie?
We're going to take an action on the tax increment district development agreement between the Village of Mount Pleasant and Racine County. Before I ask for a motion, and seeing as there's been other speeches, I'd like to just make one. As someone who spent 30 years leading a company that developed 6 state-of-the-art business parks in the Racine, Kenosha, Oak Creek corridor, I want to doff my hat to you. This business park is probably the best site in the country, if not the country, certainly the Midwest. It is prepared to move forward. Having a significant anchor like Microsoft here to provide the support that 21st century companies are going to need is a tremendous step forward, and I congratulate the board and everyone else involved in that. Any other comments from members of the authority before we have a motion? Yep.
You know, Vince Lombardi said this one day: luck is what happens when an opportunity meets preparation. You know, we're very lucky today to have this project. We're prepared for this opportunity. Everything we do in life right now, today, is data-driven. So the most important infrastructure right now is this data center. Microsoft is a huge player in this arena. It's time for us to come together as a community like we did when SATA came here. It's time to commit to our future and not get bogged down in the past. Please approve this agreement. Let's all approve it. We're in a Super Bowl right now. Let's win. And one other thing, Lombardi said, once you're in the end zone, act like you've been there before, and we have.
Dave, I just have one brief comment, please.
Sure.
The puzzle has been carefully put together, and we are ready to act as required.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to approve the development agreement that's set forth?
I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Sam, would you call the roll call?
Frankie,
Aye.
McReynolds,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Davies, Clausen,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Well,
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn for the CDA?
Second.
The motion passes. We are adjourned.
I believe Trustee Anastasio had a comment yet, too.
Yes, of course. I also support this agreement, and I read it thoroughly, and I understood it, and I called Claude about 5 times this afternoon with more questions, and I asked him more later. For those of you who haven't looked at or understand the TID districts, the base value of this property at the time the district was created was $3.5 million. Now it's being sold for $50 million. So the difference in property taxes that we would collect on $3 million versus the property tax we would collect on $50 million, that's the increment. So when Alan was talking about the increment, that's what he was referring to. So that additional money in a TID gets set aside and used to pay off the debt, because we took on debt to put in the sewer and the water and the roads and the electricity. So we're not using that for what you would normally use the additional taxes for. We're using it to pay off the debt and to pay some incentive to the developers to come here. And so that's, that's kind of the meat of it to me, is that, yes, we're paying them something, but when you think that this property that was worth $3 million by the time they get done is going to be worth $1 billion with a B, the amount of property taxes that will be coming in will help pay off the debt, and eventually all that debt will be paid off after we're gone, and that money will all flow to Racine Unified, to the county, to Mount Pleasant, and to Gateway District. So there's a lot of tax money. Some of it's coming right away, some of it will be later, but we made the investment and it's paying off. I'm very happy to vote for this.
Yes, I think it's worth noting that any incentive that, in this case, Microsoft gets is money that, it's their own money that's coming back to them that they've already paid.
Can I, with your permission?
I'll leave you with the last word, then we gotta move on.
A quick one. I just want to say that I want to congratulate our community, all of you in the audience, all of you out there, because with your support, the Foxconn agreement at that time wouldn't happen, and without your support, the infrastructure wouldn't have been built, and without your support, we wouldn't be here today with Microsoft. So I want to congratulate each one out there, not only in Mount Pleasant, but Racine and Kenosha County. This region is thriving. So thank you.
So the first item that's up in front of us then is I need a motion for the discussion regarding the implementation agreement with Racine County, SIO International Wisconsin, Inc., FIWI Development Corporation, and AFE, Inc.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the implementation agreement with Racine County, SIO International Wisconsin, Inc., FEWI Development Corporation, and AFE, Inc., as presented.
Second.
So I hear a motion by Washburn, second by Batcha. Any further discussion on this item? I think we've heard it all.
Perhaps we want to clarify that those entities are different subsidiaries or whatever of Foxconn.
Do you want to just say a word about that?
Yeah, all these, the names of those companies are all divisions or subsidiaries of Foxconn. So we use Foxconn generically, but those are the companies that make up the Foxconn enterprise.
So with that clarification, roll call, please.
Doxy?
Aye.
Washburn?
Aye.
Bhatia?
Aye.
Anastasio?
Aye.
Hewitt?
Aye.
Clausen?
Aye.
DeGroot?
President says aye. Motion carried. So the second item would be regarding the sale of land. Is there a motion for that?
Mr. President, I'm proud to make a motion regarding the sale of the land within TID number 5 to Microsoft Corporation for $50,085,000.
Second. Sorry.
So I hear a motion and a second regarding the land sale. Any further discussion or questions or comments, clarifications?
Nothing here.
I do have a question. Where did the 85,000 come into the 50 million?
I thought we would round things up or something.
I think I can answer the question. The price was arrived at, if you do the math, at $159,000 per acre, and so you get the odd number by multiplying an odd number by an odd number. That's, besides, they have to have some money to pay the legal bills. That's a joke.
That'd be a little legal humor. All right.
Well, yeah, we can't just celebrate, we have to keep our sense of humor as we go through this.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
So on the matter of the land sale, roll call, please.
Doxy?
Aye.
Washburn?
Aye.
Bhatia?
Aye.
Anastasio?
Aye.
Hewitt?
Aye.
Clausen?
Aye.
DeGroot?
President says aye. Motion carried. So then we have the third item, which is development agreement.
Mr. President, again, I proudly would like to make a motion regarding the development agreement for approval of the development agreement with Microsoft Corporation.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. Again, are there any other questions, thoughts, comments from the board?
I have nothing.
So not hearing any comments, roll call, please.
Doxy?
Aye.
Washburn?
Aye.
Bhatia?
Big aye.
Anastasio?
Aye.
Hewitt?
Aye.
Clausen?
Absolutely aye.
DeGroot?
President says aye. Motion carries. So, as Attorney Markowitz said at the outset of this meeting, Microsoft has signed, sealed, and delivered those three documents to us. The board and the CDA have just approved those documents, and so I have three documents that need my signature notarized. And so I'll need to excuse myself, so I need one last motion.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 We stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yay.